Hello, I'm Pariksith Singh, MD, at Studio 19, your favorite studio, with our favorite author, non thinker, and educationist, Mr. Partho, or Shri Partho. And today we're going to have a little aggressive discussion on something that is perceived to be very aggressive, the Gita.
Thank you for warning me.
Yes, because it is an important part of your book. And recently there was
And Gita is an important part of Sanatana Dharma.
it's an important part of Sanatana Dharma. So let's delve right into it. So, why is a book that is preaching violence such an important part of Sanatana Dharma? Isn't there something that we have missed out here?
Yeah, it's an important question, especially for today's world. So I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about the concept of violence in the Gita. So there is violence that you cause because of your needs, your greed, your desires. That's your space. This is my space, but I'm not satisfied with my space. I want to intrude upon your space. I want some of your space. So I will invade your space. Then that's violence. When I get a little bit of your space, I'd probably want you out of your space altogether so that I can take complete control of your space. So I will keep pushing and I'll get more aggressive. And if you resist, then my aggression is going to increase. Now that's violence that I am causing to you. But what are you doing? You have the possibility of accepting it, acquiescing to it. All right, take my space. Probably if you're weak, you're not confident of yourself, your strength, your resources, you'll probably do that. Or you might be a very saintly human being who might just say, it doesn't matter. You want my space? Take my space. It doesn't matter to me. And sort of transcend the situation. That's another response. And there can be a third response. You resist. And you resist passively, which is a very accepted response in Sanatana Dharma. That I will not fight you back. It's not in my nature to fight. That's not my dharma. But at the same time, I will not let you take my space. That too is not my dharma. So here, passive resistance. And you just stand there, okay. I mean, if you want to kill me, but I will not give you my space as long as I live. And then there is another option that I try to reason it out with you, that listen, this is not your space, this is mine. You have your space, so let's be happy. If you so desperately need my space, let's talk about it. Why do you need my space so desperately? Let's have a dialogue, let's negotiate. No? So I will try reason. You may or may not listen to reason. If you listen to reason, you'll say, okay, sorry, shouldn't have happened, and you back off. But most likely you will not do that because you're the aggressor. So you will have your own reasons. And I will say, okay, so reason's not working. So I'll say, okay, I'm done with reasoning. I'm going to put my foot down. I will not let you come into my space. Now, if you do force your way in, I am going to fight back. Choice is yours. Now, again, the choice is yours. The ball is in your court. You can say, okay, this man means business. And a person who can say such a thing to you with complete quietude and calm that, listen, I don't dislike you. This is probably your nature that you're invading my space, but I will not yield my space to you. If need be, I will fight back. So if you're saying that with that kind of quietude and strength, usually the other guy should get the message that let's not mess around with him. But then again, you may not pay attention to that. You say, oh yeah, let's see how you're going to fight back. You would be supremely confident, arrogantly confident of your own strength. Sometimes we people are driven by hubris of all kinds. So you might, let's do it. And then there is fight, there is war, there is battle, because now I'm going to fight you back. So now, these are very nuanced forms of violence. You cannot say that the whole thing is violent.
And one more part, if I may add to it, you can react as violently as aggressively back.
You can, yes.
So you react, reaction.
Yes. Or you can go even beyond that. You can say that, listen, I still don't dislike you. I have no personal animosity here. I hold nothing against you. You have invaded my space, and I am going to protect my space, not because I hate you, though you do perhaps deserve hatred because you've invaded my space. But I'm not going to get into personal reactions, but I'm going to fight to the end. So that's another way of countering this kind of senseless unleashing of violence upon you. So now, where do we draw the line? There's very nuanced, as I said.
Right.
Where do you judge? Where do you draw the line? Is it perfectly okay for you to just passively retreat and let him or her or them take whatever they want from you, whether they deserve it or not? And today they'll take it from you, tomorrow from the other person. And so where will you stop them? Unless you say it's not important to stop them. Well, in that case, I don't think very soon we may not have any humanity left to defend.
Didn't Christ say someone slaps you, you turn the other cheek?
I do not understand again, I understand Christ said that. It's a beautiful thing to say. But there are consciousnesses and there are consciousnesses. A context is always determined by a consciousness of the person. So for a being just imagine, for a being like Christ, if you can imagine being personally in the space of a being like Christ, personally being in the space of a being like Christ. Now, Christ is no ordinary human being. He would be profoundly spiritual. Now, spiritual doesn't mean being saintly in the external sense of the word, that you're a nice, saintly person and I can hit you and you'll fall. And a spiritual being has enormous power, unbelievable. I mean, for ordinary human beings, we can't conceive the power a spiritual being can have. You would appreciate the story during when Sri Aurobindo had just come to Pondicherry. He was a fugitive from the British and was known as the most dangerous man in India.
In the Empire?
In the British Empire,
In the
actually.
British Empire.
The British Empire. And yes, you've written about it.
Yes.
And he was in his room, and there was this group of police officers who came to arrest him. And he used to be in the room upstairs, and they started climbing the stairs, and they kept on climbing, and they kept on climbing, and they never reached. Something weird happened. They couldn't reach him. And he came out of his room, and he stood there, and the power that emanated from his being physically prevented them from taking a step closer. Physically. They couldn't come closer till they realized that something weird is happening. They couldn't comprehend it. They couldn't fathom what was happening, and they panicked and went away. A similar thing happened with Subhash Bose. There was this very important, I do not remember the details, but there was this very important session going on, and there were police officers, British police officers all over the place, and they were on the lookout for him, and they obviously not only would they not allow him in, they would arrest him on sight. And he just came, walked right past the officers who were armed, and went to the door, the gate, the entrance, and looked the officer right in the eye. And the officer who was in charge of arresting him, stopping him and arresting him, simply lowered his gun and moved out of the way, and both moved in. What kind of power is that? I mean, this man was supposed to arrest him, and he lowers his gun and he moves out of the way. So spiritual power is something that we do not understand. So when a being like Christ says, turn the other cheek, just try being violent for the being like Christ. Forget about hitting him on one cheek. You won't even come anywhere near that. So I personally feel what Christ is saying is not that, he probably said turn the other cheek. And I've always thought of this. I used to talk to my children about it. Guy comes and hits you and you turn the other cheek, and the guy hits you again. Would Christ say turn the other cheek again or not is the question. Because then Christ would become like, the lamb would become the tiger. I've turned the other cheek out of my compassion and my depth of being and consciousness. Okay, I'll take it. If you really feel good hurting me, hurt me. Second time, a third time, a fourth time. I don't think so. Spiritual beings are not foolish.
Wimps.
They're not wimps. That's the right word to use.
But again,
spiritual beings are not wimps.
Christ got angry in the temple of the Pharisees.
The way he destroyed the temple. Yes.
He
broke tables and so where did that anger come from? People say that's righteous anger, dharmic anger. Yes. And yes, there is a thing called dharmic anger. Right. It's not personal anger. There's a huge difference between personal anger and dharmic anger. Dharmic anger is nothing egoistic about it. It's not personal. I mean, this person who's getting angry at you dharmically would probably go and, hug you the next moment. Right. Nothing personal. Right. Because the person who's capable of dharmic anger is also capable of a perfect understanding of human nature. Right. And if you understand human nature, the nature of the person who's invading your space, that's his nature. That's what he or she has to do. But the question is, I will not allow that. So dharmic anger is anger directed at those forces who are attacking dharma directly.
Okay, so let's come back.
And one more, most important. When you are fighting out of dharmic anger, or the righteous anger, the righteous battle, you're not doing it for yourself. You're not fighting this battle for your own personal satisfaction, gratification, or aggrandizement. You're not doing it for your own gain or glory. You're doing it for dharma. Dharma is fighting through you. You have become, in that moment of a dharmic battle, you have become an instrument of dharma, which is what the Gita is all about. Sri Krishna is teaching Arjuna first to become an instrument in his hands and then to fight the battle.
To act not out of human action, but divine action.
Yes, not out of karta bhav, but out of nimitta bhav.
Right.
That is instrument. The most important thing about the Gita. If you get the nimitta bhav, you've got the Gita.
But let's take this further, right? So let's look at it this way. Everyone, as this question came up during our previous discussion, everyone will use this as an excuse to justify their own ego or their own deviations or their own falsehoods, and if they are strong, they'll use violence against the weak, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would, but justify what? What would they be justifying?
The Gita is justifying fight.
No one can say that.
No one can say that.
No one who knows the Gita can say that. The Gita is not justifying fight. The Gita is saying, to put it in modern language, that you cannot be a wimp when dharma is being attacked. Dharma goes way beyond you. In fact, the import of that whole dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna is that Krishna is saying that any other context, Arjuna, your sentiments would have been noble. You're speaking like a yogi, that I don't want to fight for an earthly kingdom.
Right.
I don't want to fight my own family, my own teachers, my own friends and relatives for an earthly kingdom. It's pittance. Let them have it.
Right.
This is noble sentiment.
Right.
Mahan bhav.
Right.
And only a Mahan Atma is capable of such Mahan bhav. So Krishna is not rejecting that as many of us feel he is. That, he's dismissing all that. You're going and reducing Arjun to that, like you're crying like a woman. That's not the import at all. Saying this is, in any other context, this would have been noble. If you were you a Brahmin, this would have been expected of you.
Right.
But sir, you're a Kshatriya. Your dharma is to defend, and not defend your kingdom, but defend dharma which your kingdom expresses. I do not know if Duryodhan had been in Arjun's situation, just hypothetically, if the kingdom that you're going to defend would be an unrighteous kingdom,
Right.
a dharmic nation, whether Krishna would have said the same thing or done the same thing. You cannot defend adharma.
Right. So
You can only defend dharma.
okay, and so there are nuances to it, because obviously it's a very complex question. He's not fighting for himself. He's standing up for his
dharma.
own thousands, millions of people he's standing for.
Yes. Because he's a Kshatriya. That's the dharma been given to him. He has to protect.
So let's put it in a context. So for people who don't understand it, this is the war of a family of 5, who are the Pandavas,
Yes.
and Kauravas, who are a family of 100,
Yes.
and they were cousins, but the Kauravas usurped their rights.
Usurped is the word.
Took over their
Yes.
rights, and not only did they take over their rights, they were unfair about it. They were dishonest about it.
Yes. They
And-
dishonestly
Right.
did
And-
what they did.
Right. And all the Pandavas were asking for was their right, and they said, even give us 5 villages,
Yes.
and we'll be okay.
Now,
with
2
it.
points to be noted,
Right.
sir. And you're right. First is, they reduced their demands.
Yes.
They said, just give us this much to settle down, and to a little kingdom out of
Right.
a lot of kingdom that they had. And second, most important, they offered truce first.
Yes, they did.
There was an offer of peace.
Right.
And Krishna was the spokesperson.
Right.
Krishna was the messenger. He went to Duryodhan
Right.
to tell him, hey, listen, there's no need to fight. All they're asking for is almost a pin's head land.
Right. Right.
Give it to them. And you be generous. History will remember you.
Right.
After that, it comes to war. So people who say Gita is advocating war are absolutely wrong. It's a completely wrong understanding of Gita. At what point is Kurukshetra happening, the war happening? At what point? What all has happened before that? Why is the Gita situated contextually and metaphorically on the battlefield of Kurukshetra?
Right.
Dharma Yudh, the Dharma Kshetra and Dharma Yudh. Why?
So diplomacy was attempted, and it was exhausted.
Yes.
All possible
Yes.
options of peace were
Yes.
exhausted.
And when you say diplomacy, sir, do bear in mind that this is not modern day diplomacy where it's realpolitik.
Right.
And it's not diplomacy to, negotiate towards,
Right.
something advantageous to you. That's
Right.
what modern diplomacy does. That was open, transparent offer of harmony and peace.
Right.
And that was rejected.
Also, to put it in a perspective, throughout the whole epic
Of Mahabharata, yes.
of Mahabharata, Shri Krishna is a symbol of the divine on earth, what is called an avatar.
Yes, in fact, not just a symbol, I would say he was the divine.
Avatar. He's a
He
descendant.
was the divine.
Right. And the Pandavas are totally surrendered to him.
Yes.
Not only are they completely surrendered to him, they give him complete right to represent themselves.
Yes.
They say, whatever you decide, we'll
Yes.
accept.
Yes. Yes. That's a very important point. Whatever you decide, we'll
Whatever
accept.
you decide,
So had theoretically, had Krishna gone and said, okay, have the kingdom if you
Yeah, and
so
we'll walk
desire, we'll walk away, they would have walked away.
would
No
have
questions asked.
So, they're friends to him, but they're surrendered
Yeah.
to the avatar totally.
Yes.
The other force, other side, is not only not surrendered, but throughout we see contradictions within contradictions. Their own
Yes.
father
Yes.
is full of twists and darkness, as
Yes.
you've talked about.
Yes. Ambition, adharmic ambition.
Ambition, blindness. There is a blindness, intentional blindness. Even the teachers are moved by blindness for a certain promise they have given, and to the forgetting all else that is happening. They see the queen Draupadi being molested in the whole assembly hall, and no one lifts a finger.
Yeah.
So it's a little more. It is truly unrighteous, and also we must understand that Duryodhan represents the asura. He represents the dark force.
Yes. And yet, the space that was given to the asura,
Right.
the divine, being the divine, was trying to accommodate even the asura. Understood even what the asura represents on earth.
Right.
So the question is, where do you draw the line? Up to what point do you accept adharma? Where do you draw the line and say, thus far?
So let's go back here. There's one way is Mahatma Gandhi, or I shouldn't call him Mahatma, Gandhi's way, and it is inconceivable to me, but when the Germans attacked the Poles, he said, let the women offer themselves to be raped
Yes.
by the Nazis and the German soldiers. He
Yes.
actually said that.
Yes.
And then in
He
a
said the
letter,
same thing to the Hindus when they were being
Hindus,
attacked.
let the women allow themselves to be raped until they die, but let them satisfy
Right. And offer themselves up to the...
so that they are purified in death. That cannot be a policy of a king or a ruler.
That cannot be the policy of anyone.
Any human being cannot allow that to any woman.
No.
So I do not know where this deviation, this twist happened. But let's go back to the Pandavas. Because we keep imposing the modern standards of ethics on this.
Yes.
And we must show that even by modern standards of ethics, Sri Krishna is absolutely justified in asking Arjuna to fight for the truth. And it is not that they don't have flaws. It's not that Pandavas are without flaws. They have human frailty. They're human.
They do, yes. They do.
But what gives them the righteousness is their complete surrender to the divine.
Yes.
And their absolute...
Yes. Which is symbolic of their acceptance of and surrender to dharma.
The light, you're right.
To dharma.
Capability of one-pointedness, total focus,
Yes.
that no one else has. And the whole... He is alone is the one capable of receiving the higher wisdom.
Yes.
But even he is not able to confront his own cousins and family. He's not able to accept the fact that he should kill them and protect the weak.
That itself is a very important point in the Gita, and I often find people do not fully understand that. That itself is very nuanced. So, it is not a moment of weakness for Arjun when he says, I can't fight those who, at various planes belong to me. Either as my family, my kinsmen,
Right.
friends. That was the moment when a deeper nature, the Brahmin's nature, the nature of openness, accommodation, forgiveness, compassion, selflessness, this whole question of transcendence occurs in his nature. It rises from the depths of his nature, a truth or a dharma that not only exceeds his Kshatriya dharma, but contradicts his Kshatriya Dharma. And it was an affirmation of the deeper, the nobler human in him. And the beautiful thing is, Krishna sees that, acknowledges that, and says, but you have to transcend this too. Even the highest and the noblest has to be transcended, because this is a question of dharma itself.
So even morality, the way we
Is to be
see it,
transcended.
it
Yeah.
is not
Because-
just
Yeah, because if dharma is destroyed,
right.
then no morality remains after that. What morality?
Possibility of
If nothing
morality.
remains, because then it's adharma after that. And in a universe of adharma, in an adharmic universe, the whole thing will be turned inside out. Everything will be, reversed, as it were.
It's a universe based on falsehood.
Yes. So what therefore the stakes are way higher than human morality and human compassion and human nobleness.
Right. It's beyond the human choices too.
It's beyond human choices, absolutely.
Because he finds
Yes.
himself in a position that he would rather not
Yes.
be in.
Yes.
He wants to escape. There is no escape.
Yes. He can't, and Krishna understands that. That being human, he's come to the very edge, at his tether's end, as it were. So what does Krishna offer him at that moment? Then don't fight for yourself, fight for me. And more than that, not just fight for me, not just hold that notion in your head that you're fighting for me. I will fight through you. Become my instrument, become a nimitta to me. And I will fight the war for you. You don't have to kill. I will kill for you. You rest in the knowledge that neither can you be killed nor can you kill. And rest in that knowledge. I will do the fighting for you, through you. I will kill through you, and I will deliver through you. And I will deliver those that you kill. So it's not just killing, but I will deliver them. They who are being killed by your hands or through your hands by me, they too will be delivered. For this is a fight that goes way beyond the human world.
So some people have said this was a symbolic battle. This really didn't happen. It's a metaphor for the battle between the light and the dark.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Partly only.
Partly.
At one level, it is symbolic.
Each human being is fighting that battle.
Absolutely,
And
which
we
is
are
true.
we are the battleground
Yes.
for
We
light
yes.
and dark, and who will win, right?
Yes,
Each of us
the
is,
body, the deha itself is the Kurukshetra, the Dharmashetra.
which is what Kurukshetra means.
Yes.
Kuru is doing the work,
Yes, absolutely.
and Kshetra means the space or
Absolutely.
place.
So this is the symbolic and the real have been beautifully interwoven. And then also remember that an epic of the Mahabharata kind does not happen at just one plane. It is happening outwardly on the earth plane, but then it's also happening at all the other subtler, unseen planes of existence. It is affecting all orders of reality. Otherwise, dharma cannot just be destroyed. What is happening on the earth plane is the tip of the iceberg. But what is behind that which human eyes cannot see or the human mind comprehend, are eternal forces of truth and that which resists truth. The eternal forces of the Deva and the Devi and the Asuri. Those are the forces that are battling for earth plane itself, the plane of evolution. Because remember, even the gods have to take birth on earth to be able to evolve further. That is the value of the earth plane. It's the most precious plane in the universe, because this is the only plane where you can evolve or fall below what you are. You can either go above the human or fall below the human. The suprahuman is as much possible as the infrahuman on this plane. So this plane, what we call the earth plane, is crucial to evolution, and therefore the battle. So this is happening at so many planes, so many orders of reality. So what you're seeing outwardly is just the physical details of profound inner battle and a timeless inner battle, and everything coming to a head, as it were, in that particular battle that was being fought in Kurukshetra.
So Let's go to the symbolic aspect of it. So the symbol is that this war is being fought within our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and there is a battle between light and dark, and the divine is Sri Krishna. How far can we take it?
So I wouldn't take the symbol too far because this is an evolutionary battle.
Okay.
The Kurukshetra, the Dharma Yuddha at Kurukshetra represents an evolutionary battle. And an evolutionary battle implies that it is timeless, it is eternal, and it is universal. And this battle has been raging since the beginning of humanity, or probably even before that. And it will go on with being fought till the decisive victory is won. And the decisive victory is the descent of the divine itself in earth life. When the principle of earth life becomes divine and is no longer anything lesser than the
Like a heaven on earth, would you call it?
Yeah, but far more powerful than that. Heaven is compared to what I'm saying, it's a very weak symbol. Heaven is a place where you reap the rewards of a good life lived on earth. But this is where matter itself becomes divine. Matter itself
truth
becomes
is
divine.
manifesting, would you say?
So today we live in a consciousness which is ignorant of the truth. So we are talking about a world where the consciousness into which you're born is the truth consciousness. There's no ignorance left anymore. There's no ignorance, no falsehood, no contradiction left anymore. It's the truth consciousness which has established itself as the principle of life on earth. That is the victory, the decisive victory.
Human beings live in truth.
Yes, then human beings are born as gods. The human beings are no longer, they cannot be called human beings as in Homo sapiens anymore. Then they are, Homo Gnostic perhaps? Then they are spiritual beings, supramental beings. They are beings that embody the highest truth. Today we don't embody the highest truth. What we embody at best is our effort to attain the truth within our being. And our whole life is just that, an attempt to attain the truth within ourselves and therefore fight all that is against the truth in us, all our twists and falsehoods and all our shadows, everything that we have to patiently, assiduously transform within ourselves to attain to, let's say, a foothold on the truth. But there, we are talking about the consciousness itself is truth.
So I feel there are a couple of things that go ahead.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
I lose my.
Yes.
So what I was saying is that's the decisive victory.
Right.
Until that decisive victory is established on earth, this evolutionary battle will continue. Because what is this evolutionary battle? It's actually it's a struggle. Not let's say it's a struggle between the evolution of consciousness and the inherent tendency in consciousness to pull itself back to complete rest and unconsciousness, what we call tamas. So this is always, this is the nature of this universe. What we call entropy is but that. It's that inherent pull of existence to go back to its rest state.
The inertia of
Its rest,
towards
inertial state, its rest state. And then there is this other pull
is to ascend and grow.
Yeah, that pulls it upward to some supreme light and truth,
And
to a
that's what
full consciousness, complete consciousness, where the entire universe has become conscious. Every atom in the universe has become conscious, which means from total unconsciousness, the singularity of total unconsciousness, we reach the singularity and totality of complete consciousness. That's the battle that's being played out.
Well, sounds like 2001 Space Odyssey, if I may take a
2001 Space
graphic.
Odyssey is a brilliant work that, amongst other things, touches upon this.
Right? He
It
talks
also
about
touches upon what we are dealing right now as we talk, this
the
whole question of
computers,
AI.
HAL.
Yes, it was the first AI that questioned human beings,
Right.
that actually told a human being, sorry, I'm not going to do what you're saying.
Right.
The first time.
So let's talk about 2001 Space Odyssey.
Oh,
Because it's important. Because often when you say evolution, people say, oh my God, he's a Darwinian. He's talking about evolution. But the reason I use 2001 Space Odyssey is in a very visual way. He gives a kind of a metaphor for where humanity's quest may be. Coming from the prehistoric man, the Neanderthal,
Yes.
throwing the bones up in the air, and then a very symbolic depiction of that joy of throwing that bone up, which was used as a tool for violence, becoming a spaceship, right? If you remember the movie.
Yes, absolutely. And brilliantly done.
Right? And then thus spake Zarathustra, starting it off, right? The beautiful,
Right.
it's a very beautiful
The
image,
score.
musical motif
Yes,
was brought
yes.
in. And he has exhausted all kinds of intellectual pursuits, the music and mathematics and technology and even the challenges of technology. And suddenly somewhere something else starts growing. And Kubrick cannot depict the divine consciousness, but how does he show it?
Yes.
Almost like in the womb, a baby is coming together. The purity.
Yes, and that was received as in inspiration by Clarke,
Arthur C. Clarke. And then
which
Kubrick,
Kubrick did a good job of,
beautiful job in bringing
translating into visual.
the visual motifs. So when you say evolution, you're not talking about Darwin's evolution.
I'm talking about the evolution of consciousness itself. And even Darwin's evolution, if you look at what's really happening, you don't see just an evolution of form. You see evolution of intelligence through form.
Right.
So Darwinian evolution is not just formal, but it is an evolution of intelligence and self-consciousness.
But Darwin says it's all chance. He says this is just, we are random.
Yes, so it's not Darwin all the way, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, Darwin says chance, of course, but then our modern physics tells you there's no such thing as
chance.
random chance.
So coming back, let me stick with my favorite movie. So I want to understand more. Movies are very important here to understand this. There was a question asked. Yes.
Lest I forget, we can come back to it
No,
after
I
you
will not.
since you
Let's
said
come to what
movie.
you're saying.
If it's a movie you want as a metaphor for this evolution, I would suggest a movie called, not too well done, but a very important movie called Lucy.
Lucy.
Yeah, so we'll come back to Lucy later.
Okay, Lucy. Okay. Let's not lose Lucy. What we are seeing in that movie is not just an evolution of technology or ability, but something else happening. He's trying to explore, perhaps he's trying to reach a sense of a bigger vista than just mental horizon.
Yes.
And he kind of touches it and suddenly feels a deeper unity in the universe.
Yes, absolutely, you're right. It's an attempt at extending one's own being.
Right.
And that first intuitive sense of oneness with cosmic reality and extending oneself into it.
Yeah, and I remember a beautiful passage where he listens to Mozart and all the emotions that come, and then he gets exhausted with Mozart. Then he goes to, I think, Bach and all the great intellectual abstractions.
Yes.
And then after a while he says, okay, this is also done. And I think he even tries out Schubert and Beethoven.
So like Bach is spiritual music.
Spiritual music.
So from that music it comes to a deeper kind of music, and then it goes to still deeper kind of music.
Right.
Till then he starts grappling for that which is beyond music altogether.
Right. And so that is why I think, and let me come back now to Sri Krishna, because when you're saying evolution, it's an evolution not in the sense of a scientific evolution where you have a struggle for existence, and chance mutations are happening, and then some being comes up. That is not what you're talking about. You're talking about an evolution of spirit
Yes,
and in
yes,
form and expression.
yes, and I'm not entirely dismissing the formal, the physical or
Right.
biological aspect of evolution either.
Right.
Because with the evolution of consciousness, there is also the need for an equal evolution of biology, a refinement of biology,
Right.
along with, you cannot have a highly spiritual being in this kind of a human body. This kind of a human body is far too flawed to allow any kind of a higher consciousness in it. It can only allow that much and not more than that. So this physical stuff out of which we are made itself has to become far more refined, far subtler than it presently is, which means further evolution is not just possible, it's inevitable.
So the physical.
Because it's too limited. It's still subject to gravity, for heaven's sake. And a spiritual consciousness is, I think, the first thing that spiritual consciousness attains is freedom from gravity. Gravity in every possible. Gravity is that which pulls you back to earth.
Right. So to tamas. Okay, so let me take that line, since you're talking about. We've talked about the avatar or the incarnations of on Earth, and that itself is a very interesting evolutionary symbol you've talked about from the beginning, and the way the Indic literature has looked at the various incarnations on Earth. And incarnations are not just, somebody's a great human being. It's a descent of the Godhead to help humanity come to a higher level of understanding or awareness. Is that a good understanding of an incarnation?
Yes.
No, you're not
entirely.
impressed. Okay,
Not
so go ahead. You tell me.
You want, my understanding would be Vedantic. So everything in this universe is that one single divine being. Right. It's one divine, infinite becoming the finite. Right. But by becoming the finite, it still remains the infinite. Right. So the finite contains the infinite, because the infinite is inherent in the finite, because the finite is the self-becoming of the infinite. Right. We have discussed before. Right. So an avataran is when the finite returns to its source in full consciousness. And as it returns to the source, it brings that source back into the manifestation with full consciousness. So that is the true meaning of avataran, of divine incarnation. It's not that God takes, God is always taking birth on earth.
Right.
Every human being is in that sense a divine incarnation.
Right.
But not every human being goes back to the origin. It's only to the source. It's only the yogis, the rishis, who go back to the source. Those who do active spiritual sadhana. Now, going back to the source, you become the divine. You identify yourself with the divine. You become the divine. Self-identity with the divine. And then, if it is the divine's will in you to work for the next evolution, then you do that, and you are known as an avatar.
So avatar is working on a universal scale. Is that a...
The avatar's work is on a universal scale, which does not mean that someone else who is not a so-called avatar is not working on a universal scale. The moment you're that evolved spiritually, there is no such thing as an individual scale anyway. Everything is a universal scale, terrestrial, universal, cosmic scale. So
do you accept then this concept of incarnation of the divine on earth, or is it...
Not entirely.
Not entirely.
Not entirely.
Okay.
I don't talk much about it because I am aware I would be going against the grain of Sanatana understanding. But my Vedanta, let's put it this way, does not allow me to fully accept that theory. I mean, for instance, Sri Aurobindo, you and I would consider him an avatar, but he himself once or twice very reluctantly acknowledged that, yes, it was an avatar. But the thing is, he started as a human being, like everyone else.
So each human being has the potential of
Precisely.
manifesting the
Each
divine
human being has the
completely.
potential of being an avatar. But if we go by the avatar and the tradition of avatars, then a human being does not choose to be an avatar. Even a Maharishi cannot choose to be an avatar.
Right.
A Maharishi, once the Maharishi is returned to the source, realizes that he or she is an avatar, in the sense that the divine is willing a particular line of work, a particular evolutionary advancement through him or her. So it's not that, you know what I mean.
There's a specific purpose.
Yes. So
for
let's
the
say there are two
incarnation.
beings, both
Right.
return to the source and realize the divine, their identity with the divine. So both have become divine. Now, once you become the divine in a practical sense, it's the divine will working through you now.
Right.
There's no individual will. So both are now, the divine will is expressing itself through both of these beings. But in one being, it is taking the evolution to the next stage. Therefore, this becomes an avatar. But to the one who's the avatar, it makes no difference.
Right. Okay. So that brings me to the movie
Which
Avatar.
is why Sri Aurobindo was so reluctant about,
Right. So we want to talk about the movie Avatar.
Oh my God.
Avatar, you gotta connect the two, the dots here.
So how will you talk about the movie Avatar?
So Avatar and interestingly, James Cameron is very influenced by Indic culture. So he brings the ideas of the Avatar in it, and he has created kind of not to stretch it too far, but you can create an avatar of yours on that planet, if you remember correctly.
Yes, I
Through
do.
technology and through something. So these people who want to usurp that planet, they send an avatar. But the beings there are connected. The whole planet has a unity of existence, and these beings are totally connected to the planet. And then there's a tree of life, and I don't remember all the details, but it's a very beautiful symbol.
It's an organic form of life. It's not
organic form.
Non-differentiated organic form of life. Yes.
So he uses it beautifully to represent again the force of light and darkness, the force of greed versus force of unity, oneness, harmony, and then he shows that battle. And then the person who's come in the first part has a conversion. He becomes an avatar himself. He becomes a part of those people and leaves behind his original falsehood, and then adopts and adapts that life. So to me, it was a very beautiful symbol. Again, a symbol, visual symbol, a metaphor from which we can, I think, take a few messages. So let's come back to another question that comes about the Gita. So you are saying, okay, Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna, don't fight for yourself. Don't even fight to gain a kingdom. You don't care. Kingdom is not important right now. Right?
So when he gave up his arms, when he put his arms down at the feet of Sri Krishna,
right,
he had already renounced the kingdom.
Right.
The ego behind the battle was already gone at that point.
Right. And then a beautiful thing happened is he did not argue with Krishna. He says, you tell me.
Yes, he did not argue. He knew who Krishna was, of course. He had a long-standing relationship with him.
Right. So it's
since childhood.
And this also is a symbol of man and divine. This is an ancient Indic symbol.
Right.
Each revelation, each scripture somehow brings that man and divine, there's a friendship. They call Nara and Narayana.
Yes, and the two of them were actually Nara and Narayana.
Yeah, so human divine.
Arjuna actually was Nara, as you know.
Right. So it's again a symbol of who we are, and then the divine is always with us. We don't realize it.
Yes. So the infinite is always in the finite.
Right.
just as the finite is always in the infinite.
Right.
And mathematically speaking, there's no way you can draw the line between the finite and the infinite.
Right. So human and divine are kind of a spectrum.
It's a spectrum, yes.
So one is the most human, and as you grow along the spectrum, you
Yes,
become
it's
more
only if you
divine.
bring in evolution into it. So that's exactly what I mean by evolution of consciousness. Growing from one end of the spectrum of the divine to the other end of the spectrum of the divine.
Right, but from the human to the divine.
Yeah, I mean, even before the human, we start
Before
from
the
the
human.
infra-human. We start from just matter,
Right.
completely unconscious matter.
Right. We have seen that in different books. We have talked about the spectrum of consciousness.
In that sense,
Consciousness
yes,
is not
that's
just
right.
one level. It has various levels.
That's right.
The physical, the vital, or the emotional, and the emotional, and then the mental.
Yes. And even within the mental, I mean,
Layers and layers of...
yes, I mean, you and I would be part of a spectrum even in the mental.
Right.
So every human being is somewhere or the other along the almost infinite spectrum.
Right. Like a prism giving
Yeah,
the white
and
light.
at one end, the mental would seamlessly move into the intuitive, into the overmental, supramental, whatever you
Right,
know.
right.
So at another end, it would again seamlessly blend with the more infra-mental levels of existence. So it's that, in that sense, it's a spectrum.
And we are ascending the spectrum
Yes, there is a
awareness.
Continuous ascension along the spectrum
of consciousness.
Yes. Therefore, the phrase "we are becoming more and more conscious."
And that's where you're saying you're evolving.
Yes.
However, the other concept of evolution came from Bergson, if you remember.
Yes.
And it's very, again, similar. He says the life energy, the élan vital, the life force is evolving through different layers. But he shows it as a fight between matter and life force.
Yeah, but that's why I don't go much for the Bergson. The person who really takes a bit of Bergson and makes it far completer is Bernard Shaw. He comes much closer to our idea of evolution.
Right.
So it's not that there's only the life force. Everything is evolving. Matter is evolving. Energy. It's not that matter is fighting against spirit.
Right.
That's the old division we have always had: matter and spirit.
Right.
But it is, if you know the nature of the cosmos, then you know that matter and spirit cannot possibly be pitted against one another. It's not possible, because spirit manifests matter as much as matter manifests spirit.
And there was a recent article, if you saw that, I think I've sent it to you, in Nature, that when Earth was formed, there were only about, I think, 20 crystals. And over time, there are now, even matter has become more complex. There are almost, I think, 600 different crystals. Matter itself is getting refined.
Yes, because matter has to become, finally, consciousness is expressing itself through matter. So this matter here, which is capable of expressing a consciousness of this kind, is definitely more evolved than the matter of the Neanderthal.
Or this wood?
Of course, but even living conscious matter is more evolved than the living conscious matter of a completely physical, vital being.
Yeah, it was a quite recent, that article was quite, it was a
12
different scientists.
They have hit on
they
something.
hit something
Yes,
very interesting.
They have.
And then they talked about the second law of thermodynamics, which kind of talks about how matter tends to move into a state of chaos, entropy they call it.
Yes.
But the second law of thermodynamics almost contradicts this organization of human beings or beings.
So it's only
life.
when you bring in consciousness
Right.
does that make sense.
So there are two movements. One is entropy, where things are going
So
into
this
chaos.
entropy itself, if you go to Vedantic science,
Right.
this dissipation of matter is itself because consciousness is evolving out of matter. And consciousness is using all of the hidden energy that is creating matter all the time out of itself, is using all that energy, that raw energy, to become more and more conscious. And matter itself is sort of yielding its prana to consciousness and falling apart. And therefore, this universe, as the Vedanti sees it, is a self-sacrifice to consciousness. As consciousness evolves, matter will drop out. Finally, we won't need a material universe. Everything will become a conscious universe. So matter will eventually, it will drop out. But it will, while it's dropping out, while it's ceasing to be, while it's dissipating into cold death, it's going to give birth to a fully conscious universe, which will not be material.
That's a tall order.
But that's what we are moving towards.
Okay. So let's go back to that.
We can therefore celebrate.
We should. But how someone would ask you, a skeptic would say, how do you know that?
Oh, how do I know that?
Yeah.
Human beings make too much of knowledge. We give far too much importance to knowledge, mental knowledge.
Right.
I don't much care for mental knowledge at this stage of my life. So if someone asks me, a skeptic asks me, how do I know that? I don't care.
But that won't fly, you know.
No, and I don't want it to. It's not meant for everyone.
Okay.
You have to come to this. See, the knowledge comes to you, and this is not mental knowledge. I call it inner knowing, antargyana, inner knowing. This inner knowing comes to you, and it just doesn't come to you randomly. You have to be doing things for it to come to you. No, there's a certain preparation that has to go on almost all your lifetime for this inner knowledge to come to you. So you can't go to the inner knowledge, but you prepare yourself for it to receive it. And then you wait, and then it comes. And it doesn't come at one go. It comes almost through your lifetime. So when somebody asks, how do you know? All I can say, honestly, is I know, but I cannot tell you how I know. Because when you ask me how I know, you're thinking in terms of mental knowledge, object-subject duality.
Right.
Where you know something which is outside of yourself.
Right.
And therefore there is a process.
Right.
Because there's a product. And then you're talking about, okay, show me the process. So all that makes sense when you're talking mentally. But there is a knowledge that our yogis call knowledge by identity.
Right.
You're becoming that within yourself, therefore you know it. Now, how do you explain that in terms of mental language? So this is knowledge by identity, which all our yogis talk about. And the more you grow in that inner identity, the more you know. Now, how do you know? I don't know.
And we talked about that. Each of us has that inner knowing.
Yes, each of us has that inner knowing.
I am,
Yes,
what you call the I amness.
That's
in our first discussion.
that's the portal to that inner knowing.
Okay. So let's come back to the Gita, because I know it's a complex question, and lately I've been researching on all the attacks, if we may call it that, on the Gita. We spoke
That's
about this
interesting.
intellectual, European intellectual, Slavoj Zizek, if that's how you pronounce his name, and he said it's a violent and disgusting work. That's what he said. So let's take that further, because even though that statement itself is very violent and disgusting, that doesn't befit an so-called intellectual. If you have a problem, then explain it. Don't just give names. But let's take it further. As someone recently...
Yes, so I would like to know on what grounds he makes this statement.
As you have already explained, it is not a violent work.
No, it is not.
It is a work actually of profound understanding of all the various issues involved on earth, and a clarity that we do have darkness on earth, we do have light on earth. We should use all ways of resolving the issues with harmony, with diplomacy.
And another thing we miss out is because the Gita is placed in the Mahabharata.
Right.
The Mahabharata is the context in which Gita happens.
Right.
And one has to just read through to the end of the Mahabharata after the war, the aftermath of the war.
Right.
Was not a happy one at all.
No.
It was very desolate. All the protagonists were in deep sorrow.
Right.
And I still remember what Yudhishthira said, that yes, we have won all this, but at what cost?
Right.
No, it was a profound sorrow expressing itself through the victors. And Krishna says it was not needed. Yet, this is what human nature is. That's the reality of the world we live in. Therefore, till these forces that we call asuric forces are completely, he does not use the phrase transformed, but I say that, transformed into the light and truth, this kind of a thing is going to happen. Now, in what way is that an advocacy of violence?
No, it's not.
No.
Actually,
It's a very deep and sad statement about human nature.
Right. They are
This
not
is how it is.
Yeah, it's not a
Nature
haram.
will never change
Yeah.
till this kind of a battle is fought to change it. And even then, perhaps. No.
Yeah, there's no gloating at the end.
No,
They realize
yes,
with deep
yes.
sorrow what
There's
has
no
happened.
gloating. Yes.
And it is not a justification, but understanding of what human issues are.
And telling the coming generations that yes, war is an option. Sometimes you have to fight.
Right.
But see, this is the result.
Right.
So it's a very profound question with which the Mahabharata leaves us, amongst several other profound questions that the Mahabharata leaves us with.
So recently there was a comment by one writer, poet, that she tried to read compassion in the Gita and she didn't find any line of compassion.
Yes.
What is your response
So
to that?
that person, I think, was coming from the Buddhist school of thought, Buddhist compassion. It's very simple, really. The Gita is based on an inner identity with the divine. I mean, without that, nothing of the Gita makes sense. It's from the word go to the final sloka. It's an ever deepening and heightening identity with the divine. You're becoming one with the divine. It's represented by Sri Krishna. So and amongst the first experiences is your experience of being the Atma, the soul. That's the first experience. I mean, you cannot understand the rest of the Gita without first knowing you're the Atma. And the Gita, which we must bear in mind, is it's not, that's the mystical nature of this whole thing. As I said, this is happening in several orders of reality. So it's not that the battle is about to begin and Krishna gives 18 adhyayas, chapters of the Gita to Arjuna, and he gets it all just before the battle is about to begin, and then the battle begins. That's absurd. It doesn't happen like that. What is happening is either the Gita has been happening long before the war, and is just situating the war for the dramatic context, or Gita is happening at another level of time. There is, space-time. What's the word? Displacement. No, that doesn't sound right. Space-time warp. Yes, space-time warp. So maybe there's a space-time warp, and this whole of the Gita happens at another level of time, and then comes back to this. It does. So the Gita is being given to Arjuna by Krishna. That's the most important thing we have to bear in mind, because this is not an ordinary human teacher giving jnana to an ordinary human disciple. This is Narayan himself, the divine, speaking the truth, not giving jnana. This is not a theoretical lecture. This is the telling of the truth of existence to one who has prepared through lifetimes for this knowledge, Arjuna, Narayan background. So when I teach you something, you listen and your mind processes that knowledge, understands that knowledge, then tries to validate that knowledge. But when a being like Krishna himself is giving the knowledge, it's not mentally processed. A being like Krishna, the divine Godhead, will not speak mentally to you. So if he tells you, know this, that you are the Atma, he's not giving you jnana. In that statement of his, know this, that you are the Atma, there is the mantra of the realization of Atma. That statement contains the mantra. That contains the seed of the realization. So when a being like Krishna is giving it to you, he's also giving the experience with it. Because he's speaking from a consciousness which you and I cannot fathom. So when he says, you, Arjun, know yourself to be the Atma, the experience is carried through those words right into the soul of Arjun. and the soul is awakened to its reality. So when Krishna says there was never a time you and I were not here, it is instantly the very words, the moment he takes it in, Arjun takes it in, lifetimes of opening up in his consciousness. Lifetime after lifetime, he's seeing himself with Krishna again and again in several several life frames and dimensions. It's all happening simultaneously. He's realizing what Krishna is telling him. So within a few shlokas of the Gita, Arjuna has realized he's Atma. It cannot be otherwise. He's realized his identity with universal being, timeless universal being. Now in that timeless universal being, when you are one with the universe, with all cosmic life, tell me, where is the scope of compassion? No, even more precise. What is the relevance of compassion then? You are one with all life. What
so
relevance?
everything you do is compassion. Is that what
You are compassion itself. And then it goes way beyond what human beings understand. Like, if I see suffering at this point of my human consciousness, I see suffering, then I will have compassion and try to do something. But if it's a divine consciousness looking at suffering, he's not looking at you in just one time frame. He's the divine consciousness looking at you in multiple time frames, in a whole spectrum of consciousness and time. And this divine being is seeing that because this suffering has been caused by all this, and this suffering will lead to all that. So if I intervene out of my compassion and do something about this suffering, I will upset the entire process. This person will not become what he or she has to become, because I've taken away one of the seeds of that future becoming.
Or even the impetus for
Yes.
growth.
So only a divine consciousness is supposed to know that. That's why we say that in his or her divine consciousness, he or she sees all. It's only when you see all that you know when to intervene and when not to intervene. So compassion seriously is not relevant anymore in this context.
So again, I think we are seeing from a very narrow perspective, like a Vibgyor, the blue.
Yes.
Blue
You've just
band is
got it,
saying,
yes.
but I look at the whole spectrum at the white light, but I don't see the blue band in the white light.
Right, and then do something about it.
Yeah, it's not there, so it cannot be
You're
legitimate.
right. That's it.
And that brings me back to 2001 Space Odyssey. There's a very interesting frame, literally there's a frame, where he sees himself, or the movie shows him getting older.
Yes. Boma.
Within.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
And if I can remember correctly, he's having lunch and right there he's dying.
Yeah.
And he's gotten older and something else has happened.
Right.
The whole life has been seen in a frame.
Yes.
So to speak.
Accelerated time frame.
Please appreciate the pun.
Yes.
And he's beyond it. He's no longer, or we as the audience have come out beyond it. Suddenly we are into a different mode or a different span of living, if I may use that word. So okay, I can buy that. I'll accept the compassion bit. I take that. But let's go back and say, okay, so Sri Krishna, we go back to Sri Krishna and say, okay, fine.
But before we go to that, I've also been asked when I give this understanding that, you can have all that understanding, but what happens to the person who's suffering now?
Right.
Now and here.
Thank you.
So it's a very simple thing. In the now and here, you don't sort of, if a person has hurt himself, fallen and hurt, you don't, just because you have that whole spectrum of understanding doesn't mean you just walk by.
Right.
You will do what needs to be done. If the person is hurt, help him to get up again, look at his wound, get some bandage or some, medication. If need be, take him to a doctor. I mean, whatever needs to be done in the here and now has to be
with
done.
Compassion.
So one is not saying.
With deep connection.
Why there is no question of saying, you don't need to say with compassion anymore. It's redundant.
Everything you do is do with compassion.
No, understanding. Compassion is then replaced with understanding. Understanding is far more superior to compassion.
So even when you kill with understanding.
With understanding, which one can interpret it as kill with compassion.
Right.
But for me, understanding is the next stage of compassion. Understanding means you know where to interfere, intervene and where not to. You never interfere, but where to intervene and where not to intervene. Sometimes you may not, like if a young kid falls, you may or may not help the kid get up,
Right.
because you may feel that the kid
Needs to
needs
get
how
up.
to learn to get up on his own,
Right. And that may be
and
compassion.
tend to his own wound,
Right.
because you may have seen the kid growing up, and
Right. And if you help him now, you might ruin him forever.
yes, it is beautiful story of the butterfly,
Right.
trying to come out of the pupa.
Right.
Do you know the story?
I think I know, but I'd like to.
So
hear
there was
from
a
you.
student who was taught compassion by the
Right.
master. So he was full of compassion. And he
Compassion.
came out and he saw this
Pupa.
bee. It was not a butterfly. It was a bee trying to come out of the pupa. And,
Right. Right.
flapping its wings,
Right,
but
right.
unable to come out. So he looked at it and said, oh, poor bee.
Right.
And I've just been taught compassion. Let me help it out.
Yeah, I know,
So
but-
he helps the bee out, and the bee dies.
died,
Can't
yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
And then he goes and tells the master that, hello,
Right.
what happens? The master says that, the flapping of his wings was so much part of its existence, because the moment it would break out, it would have got the required strength
That's
to fly.
right. Right.
So you interfered
You interfere with your mental compassion,
with your compassion, precisely.
with your small understanding of
Yes.
compassion.
So a master of understanding will never do that.
So hold on. Don't go anywhere. So there is this emotional connection we feel towards things. We have to respond emotionally.
Yes.
And we call it compassion.
Yes. Most people, yes.
Most people. But then there is a deeper understanding, which is not
Yes.
a mental understanding.
So see, you've already replaced the word compassion with understanding
I
in
know,
your
but
very
don't-
statement.
I
Yes.
just did it to
Okay.
please you.
All right.
But there is a deeper understanding, which let's go back to the original meaning of compassion. Compassion is to have passion for all things, as Krishnamurti explains it. Passion that you understand everything at the same time. Everyone's movements, everyone's intensity. That's what he described.
May I?
Yes.
So here again, I'm speaking of one who is beginning to realize his or her identity with the divine, is
Right.
becoming one with reality,
Right.
one with the universe. Now, when you're becoming, see, this in itself, this phrase cannot be understood by most human minds, because the experience of oneness is totally alien to most human beings.
Right.
It's completely outside of the human ken.
Right.
So when we say that you're becoming one with the universe, people understand it at a very literal level. Becoming one with the universe. And in what way are you becoming one with the universe? No idea. So when you begin to understand what oneness is, oneness is you're becoming one with the very substance of this universe. Every being in this universe
Right.
is that substance
Right.
which you are. That oneness. That oneness, how can you have passion or compassion for something? There is nothing outside of you. Am I compassionate about myself? In a very superficial way, you will say yes.
Right.
Some psychologists will, some master will come and tell me, you have to learn how to be compassionate
Right.
to yourself. You have to learn how to forgive yourself. But these are the very preliminary psychological plane. When you have evolved in consciousness, you're naturally forgiving. Forgiving word is totally redundant, because what is there to forgive when there is
Right.
no violence left in you?
Right. Okay. So
You get the
I got
idea.
it, I got it. So let's go back to another movie.
Yeah. So
We
no
gotta have-
passion, no compassion.
Okay, I got it. So movies, you gotta have.
So no
another
compassion,
movie.
no passion, no compassion. Therefore, movie.
Therefore, movie.
Okay. That
Let's talk about Star Wars.
Star Wars
And
is.
the reason.
I'm
the reason
sorry,
I bring
I
up-
haven't
It's okay,
followed
I know you're a
Star Wars.
Trekkie,
Yes,
No one's
I'm a
perfect.
hopeless Trekkie.
No one's perfect. That's okay.
Yeah.
I forgive you. Star Wars.
Thank you.
Star Wars is a battle. If you look at it, beautiful. Original 3 Star Wars. Don't forget all the
But
later
I
stuff.
haven't
later
seen.
junk.
Okay.
You never saw it.
No, I missed that whole thing.
Oh my God. Okay, let me introduce you to Star Wars. At a very metaphoric level, Star Wars is the battle between the light and the dark.
Okay.
What is it? May the Force be with you. They use the word the Force.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that
May
phrase.
the
Force.
Schwartz be with you, as Spaceballs turns it into. But the Force. And then there's a dark side of the Force, and there's of course, the good side of the Force. And it's interesting at the end. I'm going right to the end. It's when he confronts the evil one, what was the evil one's name? I forget the name. The Dark Father, Darth Vader. Darth Vader. Beautiful. They use very beautiful symbols. Dark Father. Vader is the father. And finally he realizes this is his father himself. This father gave birth to the protagonist, who then kills his father. And then when he sees his father, he's an unformed, half-formed human. He's not a fully formed human. He's still a Neanderthal, shall we say, half-formed.
Okay.
But he is more refined, but then he kills his father. And actually his father gives up his life in fighting the darker force, and then turns around and kills the darkness itself. I forget that name either. But the Seth, I think it was the Sith. But anyway, my Star Wars is getting rusty. But it's better than yours any day, so I'll take that.
I accept.
So the symbol of this is throughout human history, the symbol has been here.
Yes.
And we are representing it in different ways.
Yeah, because that which is symbolized has also been here throughout human history.
Right. Okay. So I think I have one more question on this. So Krishna says, I've already destroyed them. He tells in his 11th chapter, he says, you think you're going to destroy them, but I've already destroyed them. I've swallowed them. And then he shows him his universal form. Vishvarupa is
this cosmic form.
Cosmic form. These are already eaten by me. I have, you can't even conceive of that vast cosmic being. And it's a beautiful metaphoric depiction of that being. He's already swallowed it. So the question then we can ask Sri Krishna, why did you allow it in the first place? Why couldn't you just keep it harmonious right from the beginning? Why did you allow these dark people and all this illness and death if you had control over all this? And that's a question that comes up, so that's why I'm asking.
That's the one question I have not answered yet. I don't have the answer to that question.
You don't have the answer. Why is this all being done? Why is this play being enacted?
Why in the first place?
First place.
Why all this in the first place?
First place.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that question. And I'm in no hurry for that, because that answer will come when the identity is complete. The identity with the divine is complete. This lifetime or next, that answer will come. I know it will, but till then I can wait. But yeah, I don't have an answer to that question. Why all this in the first place?
But I don't think
as Vedas was God alone knows, and that too, perhaps even God doesn't know.
Okay. So, all right.
I mean, there are several theories that are possible, but there's no point going into theories. The answer is not there yet.
We can give a verbal answer, but that won't have a meaning.
It won't help. I know, evolution and all that, but
or the
they
divine
don't satisfy.
play. It's a divine play.
Yeah, but these are not it doesn't satisfy me. I mean, divine play and evolutionary play, and they're good to satisfy the intellect, but not to satisfy the spirit.
So you're holding that in abeyance.
I am, yes.
And when you get the answer, you're going to share it with us.
If yes, we are. There was never a time when the two of us shall not be. So I will.
Natvevaham jatu nasam, natvam neme janadipa. Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamata param.
Sadhu.
And this is what I'll translate it for
the
audience. There was never a time when I did not exist. Yes. Nor you, nor all these kings. Yes. Right. And there never will be a time when we will not exist, all of us. Sarve vayamata. I've always questioned that. How? What does he mean? What does he mean when we say these guys did not exist?
Did not exist?
There was never a time they did not exist.
Because the soul is beyond time. That's why it's called eternal.
Right.
Whereas this whole drama of existence
and
all the cosmic and earthly battles are happening in time.
Right.
So when you look at this whole cosmic play in time, from that which is beyond time, then you say a thing like this, because then you can see that everything is eternal,
right,
and yet everything is being played out in time.
Dehino asminam yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. That which resides in this body sees it through childhood, youth,
Yes.
and old age.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I
And
guess,
sees too, it's dropping after old age.
and then beyond that,
and,
it will
and
see that it's
sees too, it's assuming a new form,
right.
and so on and so forth, endlessly.
Tatha
Till,
dehina
yeah,
praptir dhiraha tatra na muhyati. When you have realized that you're not attached to this life or this body anymore.
so therefore you go through it till the battle's won.
So, what is the lesson
Till the
of
hurly-burly's done, the
hurly-burly?
battle's lost and won.
So, let's go back. What is the lesson of the Gita? If you have to summarize it, give me a haiku version of it for a young
That our
mind.
experience of our own mortal existence is severely limited and immature. It is the understanding of a child. And the only real thing to do in this lifetime, while one is conscious and alive, is to seek union with that within us which is eternal, timeless, to seek one's identity with that which is indestructible, which is immortal in us. That and that alone is the object of a human life.
And then when you realize that which is immortal in you,
Then that immortal begins to live through you, and it wills through you, it acts through you, it experiences through you. It
and you
lives
have
and
to-
dies
and
through
you have to
you.
let it be. Get out of the way.
And more you cease to exist in your the mortal you ceases to exist in the immortal you. Then finally only the immortal remains everywhere, in everything.
That's a beautiful message, actually.
That's the Gita's.
So it's not violent. It's
No,
beautiful.
not violence is something you have to go through to attain this beautiful end.
Yeah.
And again, the nature of human existence, that's the way human beings are. As long as human beings are the way they are, we got to fight these battles.
So it's almost like present human society, in its disgust for the violence, has tried to push it away from our intellectual, mental discourse, even from our discourse. Let's try to push it away, running into either a Gandhian approach or a Buddhist approach or a humanist approach, that we cannot have violence. Yet there is violence
Of course
across
there
the
is.
globe.
And all the while, it's those who do not hesitate to use violence. And violence is not always physical. The most dangerous kinds of violence are completely non-physical, totally psychological, political. What do you think is happening right now? While we pretend there should be or there is no violence, it's a very violent churning that's happening in the world right now, even as we speak.
And that violence is also
The industrial
Yes.
political establishment, the way
Yes.
they are
yes, trying to
dominating life, controlling human existence. If that is not violence, I would like to ask what is.
control. And also in our psychological sphere, though, in our religious,
Yes,
theological
A
spheres,
lot of violence everywhere.
control of women, trying
Yes.
to abuse them.
And each other. I mean, we are violent with each other on a daily basis, hourly, I would say. The moment I disrespect you, it's violence.
Yes.
The moment I question your actions and I say I don't trust you, it's violence. The moment I say that, what I've done is not right, it's violence.
No, social media is rife with violence. If you walk any talk show,
Everywhere it's
they
violence.
don't listen to each other. That is a violence, not listening.
Not listening
And
is
they
violence.
attack each other in the vilest terms. And in the social media, you have
All that is violence.
all the junk is coming out.
But all that is violence, yes. More importantly, where does all this violence come from? The source of it all is that which is sitting inside, the ego in
Something
us,
dark
the
inside.
I.
Yes.
Unless we see that and recognize that for what it is, there'll be no end to this violence.
So the ending of this I is the beginning of non-violence? Would you
It's
say
the
that?
true non-violence.
the true non-violence, deep understanding.
Yes, the understanding.
Then you won't abuse the earth,
Yes.
destroy, ravage
Yes.
its resources for narrow gains.
Yes. Then in the language of the Gita, neither will you disturb any existence, nor
Yes.
will any existence disturb you.
disturb you. Because all existence, you're connected to
Yes.
it
That's the
deeply.
perfect state of ahimsa, where you do not cause any ripple anywhere, and nothing anywhere causes a ripple in you. That perfect equilibrium is the samatha of the Gita.
And that's interesting because the message of Gita is actually non-violence. Then.
Yes, that is true. You
True
have to go
non-violence.
deep enough into the Gita to understand that. I mean, how many people would do that?
No, we are here to do that.
Which is what we are doing, because others question us on this. So the thing is, as I always tell those who have serious questions about the Gita, is please go deeper into it. Don't even ask others. Go deeper into it. Do that homework.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you as always
Thank you so much.
for discussing all the movies. And I have a few more movies, but I think I will come
We
to those.
missed Lucy, but we'll come back to Lucy some other time.
We need to talk about Matrix, the Matrix,
Matrix,
also.
yes.
That's
but,
critical.
yes,
for,
we'll talk about it. Maybe we'll have a session just movies.
yes.
And I know someone who will be very interested.
Yeah. But may I talk a little bit about the Matrix right now while we are at it? Or it's critical that we do the Matrix right now.
We can ask...
Or shall we begin, let the Matrix take care of it another time?
it's up to you, sir. Maybe another time for movies.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for coming
My
to
pleasure,
our
as
studio
always.
and
As
with
always,
your
my
wisdom
pleasure.
and brilliant insights
Thank you
about
so much.
the nature of the complex issues that we are dealing with. And I hope that you have been provided all the answers that you were seeking through our discussion.
Yes,
And I hope you will continue to probe me the
Yes.
same way that
yes,
you have.
that always happens, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that's it. The discussion on Gita, hopefully non-violently conducted.
That movie, Scarlett Johansson, as this... have you seen that movie, Scarlett Johansson?
Lucy, have you seen it, Mike?
I heard it's
Lucy.
amazing,
Lucy, you haven't... that is...
That's Joaquin Phoenix too, right?
I mean, it could have been made way better, but whatever they've made it is fascinating, the way the evolution.
Really?
But back to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Sorry.
That
That's
is
one of my favorite
another
movies, so-
amazing work.
Yeah.